This week in Counter-Strike, FaZe have officially benched Rain, and this will also be known as the saddest day of my life. Nocries got invited to Faceit headquarters to prove that he's not cheating, just like they did with Rops a few years ago. And Team Liquid have officially announced Elige, and they've already participated in their first VRS lands, and they've dropped out of one, which creates some interesting VRS complications.
Austin, before we go into any of the topics, I just want to ask you how you're feeling. All right, because I know this is a depressing day for you. How are you feeling, buddy? Is there anything I can do to help?
Look, man, I can't believe it. They made the wrong choice, in my opinion. You know, bias aside, I still don't think this is a good roster move. In case you guys are confused what we're talking about, today Rain was benched on FaZe. Might be the actual, like, most sad day for my CS career. You know, I just there's nothing you can do for me, man. The only thing that you could maybe do is make them take it back. Take it back, please.
I don't think they're gonna take it back, Austin. I mean,
I know.
I do agree that in the short term, I think Rain is definitely a better player than you have right now coming out of Jacob. But at the same time, I think long term focus. I think people are right. A lot of analysts have been saying in the scene that FaZe potentially looks like they are going to be a weaker team coming out of this trade than Liquid will be, and I think there's a lot of validity to that idea. Because FaZe just they still are one move away, but maybe this is the right move for the long term. That then in a few months they can look back at the roster and say, now we know what we need out of our next move, or maybe they have some promise with this once Jacob gets kind of slotted in. It's interesting. It's going to be tough in the short term though. I think Rain is a bit underrated for what he actually brings to a team.
Today's video is sponsored by SkinsMonkey. Now, if you're not familiar with SkinsMonkey, this is a trade site that allows you to take some of the old and crusty skins out of your inventory, and you can actually trade them in for something a little bit new, a little bit shinier than what you have right now. And it's really easy to do this, actually. All you need to do is log in through Steam, pick the skins that you don't want to use anymore, grab the ones that you do, and then click trade. All trades will pretty much happen immediately, and any balance that you don't use in your trade actually stays on the site for you to use for any future trades that you decide to do. And right now, if you use the link in the description, you can actually get a 35% deposit bonus, and that's good for up to $100. So let's say you deposit $100, you would actually get $135 on the site if you use my link. So make sure you check out SkinsMonkey, and let's hop right back into the video. One of the things that people talked about was like, oh, maybe Rain's retiring, you know, and if that was the angle, I could also agree that, you know, what are you going to say? If it's time for him to retire, it's time for him to retire. But he was very vocal in his post. He said that he is not retiring. That's the quote, I am not retiring. And he also mentioned he would be down to learn how to be an IGL, which, again, it just makes me wonder, why didn't we get Rain IGLing FaZe over Kerrigan? I mean, I understand the players probably are ride or die by Kerrigan till the day that he retires himself, and I get that, but I just don't get it. I don't understand how it's possible that this is the decision that they went with, but I only can hope that Rain's next team is with Simple. I hope he joins BC game, like 100%. That's what I want to see happen next, because I think that's what we deserve as fans. You know, we get to see the Rain and Simple bromance play out, and it wasn't on FaZe, but it's you know, it's not like they can't afford him. I'm sure BC game can afford Rain if they can afford Simple, right? So let's hope that happens.
And it actually plays into exactly one of the things Donk said recently, which is Simple needs someone on his team that he can respect, that can kind of bring him back up. I'm not sure the exact wording of the way Donk said it, but it was kind of like, look, he's not fallen off completely, but Simple hasn't fallen off to a terrible level. He's just not going to be the best player in the world anymore, and he needs someone on his team that can kind of help him realize that and kind of like push him in the right direction. And Rain would be the perfect player for that. Especially because Simple has talked about so much about how good Rain is, how much he respects Rain. Rain was the guy that brought him into FaZe when he joined FaZe. It just makes so much sense for.
I mean, all the stars have aligned.
Yeah.
Like it's got to be what's going on. I mean, BC Game's not going to make the major. Obviously, Rain's not going to be competing with FaZe at the major either. So I don't see why this can't happen in the off season. My only question is like, what's the team going to look like? Because if Rain joins, I'm sure that they're probably going to make another change to the team as well. Probably keep Nexa as the IGL and just see what happens from from there. But I mean, you have the potential to get Rain in the offseason as well as maybe another big name after the major and make BC Game a pretty legitimate threat, I'd say. Having Rain and Simple, if they're playing at all, like, you know, we know they can. I feel like that's just an obvious move. There is no other direction I see this going unless Rain is, you know, maybe picked up to be an IGL. If we wanted to toy around with those ideas, like he's not proven as an IGL, of course, because this would be a brand new role to him. But I mean, could he go to a team like Navi or maybe Mouse? Like potentially, like I could see that if that is, you know, a risk that a team wants to take. But what do you think about that? Maybe a Rain IGL arc.
So I said Kerrigan to I jokingly predicted Kerrigan to retire and Rain to IGL. Rain never struck me as an IGL type player. He's just never seemed like that guy. So it's surprising if he is interested in IGLing. I'd be interested in seeing him just go to a team like BC Game, or I would love to see him go to a team that's kind of on the outskirts, like a Gamer Legion. He would be like the perfect player for a Gamer Legion. Like he's got some experience. He can like help those types of younger players. He can fit a lot of different roles. He can do a lot of different things. Maybe he could IGL. I don't know. It just never struck me as something that I expected him to do. But BC Game is probably the most likely destination, but at the same time, maybe BC Game blew all their money on Simple. I mean, they haven't made any moves since.
I mean, that's true, but also I don't think that there's a chance. I feel like they have to still. I mean, it's a casino, man. Like they can find the money somewhere to get Rain. And I mean, that's what I think should happen. I think it's the most exciting outcome. I think it's the one that gives Rain the biggest chance to still win trophies before he actually retires. I mean, you're right. Like, you know, Gamer Legion would be licking their lips to have a player like Rain. But I mean, so would everybody else in the top 10 that's not a top 5 team. Like anyone who's in the top 5 is pretty established, but anyone that's like, you know, competing to maybe be in the top 5 at some point, they're all looking at Rain. I mean, I think he's got to be the most well-respected pro. And I feel like, you know, he's got a lot of messages in his DMs. Also a lot from me. I'm really torn up about this. I mean, like, actually, I thought about this and I knew that this day was coming at some point, especially with the rumors. But, you know, without Rain, without FaZe, I would not have ever gotten into Counter-Strike. And so for the entirety of my CS career, I've just been watching FaZe Counter-Strike, and Rain's been there the whole time. And that's why he's always been my favorite player. Didn't want to see him go, especially under these circumstances. Not for Twist, but yeah, it's all good. I guess FaZe probably ended up with the worst end of the stick because obviously we now see the full move of Twist and Elige being traded. So Elige is on Liquid now. That got announced in the past week. And of course, FaZe is now with Twist. So I guess FaZe kind of lost out in that deal in the long run.
I mean, I think it might end up being one of those kind of like Yakindar to Furia type things where I don't think FaZe is losing in the server in terms of Elige just clearly wasn't working for them. But it's the same problem that you've always had in North America a lot of the time. What'll happen is that you'll have a player like Naf has a slump, and you don't really want to get rid of him, not necessarily because of what he's doing on your team. That's not really what you want him for necessarily during that type of slump. It's that he is good enough to go to a different team and make them way, way better if he comes out of it. And I think the same thing is true of like Elige, where he clearly wasn't working on FaZe. It's not a loss. It's not a loss for them to trade Elige away. But at the same time, Liquid gets a really insanely good player that could work on their roster. So it's like, did Liquid win? I think both teams kind of won, but if we're doing it binary 1-1, then yeah, I probably think Liquid somewhat got the better of the deal. I don't think that means FaZe lost though.
I don't know. I feel like they lost.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the trade itself as Elige for Twist, and then I'm thinking of the benching as a different thing entirely. That's a totally different aspect of this. They could have benched someone else.
Twist came in for Rain. Like that's their move. You know what I mean?
I actually think that might not be true.
Role wise, yes. Like technically, it's Jacob for Rain, but it's not actually like they would have played with Rain this season if this move didn't happen. You know what I mean? Like
I think the reason I'm disagreeing with you here is because I think the reason it took so long for this to come out is because it wasn't Twist for Rain. It was Twist for let's find out who. That's kind of what it feels like. No?
Yeah, I mean, there is. I mean, we talked about this the last couple of weeks. I guess there's a lot of options FaZe had. Like, it could have been a Kerrigan retire angle. It could have been Frozen going to Navi. It could have been Jacob just getting immediately benched right away. I mean, I guess you're right. Like, let's find out who. But I'm still just unsure. Like, what kind of conversation would have been going on? Like, I don't know. I don't. It doesn't seem like anybody wanted to have Rain go. It's like if you watch the video, you'll see everybody's very like pretty like down about it. Like Frozen actually cried in the video about Rain leaving, and like I just feel like it doesn't make sense. I feel like they signed Twist. They're like, yes, we want Twist, but then they had to figure out, oh wait, we also have to cut someone. We can't have a 6-man roster, and then that's how we end up here. You know?
Yeah, I mean, if they're that broken up about Rain being removed, then there has to be a very good reason for it. I mean, because they could have just not got Twists. I mean, that was also an option, right? So there has to be a reason that they just knew they had to make a move, right?
I think what happened was Rain realized that FaZe is going nowhere because they don't want to, make the move from Kerrigan, and I don't blame them. Again, I still think Kerrigan's the GOAT IGL, and I would play with him until he decides he's done. But Rain realizes that, they're not competing for trophies anymore. This is his chance to go play with Simple. He knows he can go. He's going to do it.
This is the most copium reasoning I've ever.
No,
this is
I think
so cope. You think he left?
I think he chose to leave. Yeah, I think he did. 100%.
There's no there's zero.
Yep.
No,
I think he chose because he knows he can place with Simple. You know what? It doesn't matter. Yeah. Anyway, so we can move on from this, and we have Elige on Liquid. They just played the Birch Cup. They got their 5 wins for their VRS core, so they don't have any weird, roster restrictions for the major. They lost to 9, which it's on some local LAN in EU. It's not like on the best PCs, and people were talking about that. I don't really care that they lose in a local LAN to 9, because it's not like 9 is a bad team, and I'm assuming they didn't have a ton of time to practice with Elige, so all is well, I suppose. And they turn around, and they were going to play the frag event that I'm going to in a few days, but they've just withdrawn from it because they could lose a game there and lose enough VRS points to not get invited to the major, and obviously that's not good, so they dropped out. But in other situations where you drop out of a VRS tournament, you just get forfeits if you drop out too early. But because Frag is now only covering the top 16 teams instead of the whole 48 like they were going to, this has no impact at all, and they can just forfeit out, and it's like nothing ever happened. But it's kind of it's weird. I don't like it because in some cases you can, in some cases you can't, and in some cases losing a VRS tournament spot is actually what loses you the major. But we'll talk about that in a second. What do you think about Liquid dropping out of Frag?
I'm guessing part of it might be the same thing that it is with a lot of events where, like, technically, like a Blast in London, the group stage is a different event than the playoffs, isn't it? I think it's like the playoffs are the group stage is like counts as a qualifier, and the playoffs are the event. Like, it's something like that. It's one of those types of things, right? Where the event is just classified because of the way they have to do it, because of the way they have to do the invites, or is it something else?
It's something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's unfortunate, but that's like the reality of things. That's just how it's going to work. I don't love that like teams, their best case, that you have a system where withdrawing from events or not attending events is actually beneficial to your ability to make the major, to the point that it's like like, obviously, if any team goes to an event and you play, like, imagine you had a round robin 24 teams and you just lost every single game. Of course you're going to lose some chances to go to the next event if that is qualifying you, or you're going to lose some ranking points, right? Of course that's supposed to work like that, but at the same time, the fact that it's this big of a deal seems a bit it just doesn't feel right. But maybe that's just the reality. Maybe that's just how things have to work in the system they have, and maybe that's okay. I don't know. It doesn't feel right. I agree. It doesn't
feel right. And for me, and not that I have any chance of ever beating Liquid, but if I were to want to go to an event like Frag and we were to somehow upset a team like Liquid, it would be really cool because we would get a lot of points and it would be great for our core. And then obviously we would hurt Liquid's chances of making the major. But I do think that it's just, there's still so many flaws in VRS, like we've talked about almost every week on This Week in Counter-Strike. There's so many flaws, a lot of weird things that you can do, things you can't do. And unfortunately, it actually is, like you said, missing events can sometimes be good, but sometimes it completely can ruin your chances of making the major. So VP is unfortunately a victim of this, where they missed Pro League because, well, I don't really know. They basically couldn't get into the country for some reason. And so now, because they can't go to Pro League and the invites for the major go out in 7 days as of recording, they have no officials and they are not going to make the major. It's not going to happen. They went from a 92% chance to make it in to missing Pro League. Now it's 12%. I think the 12% is already zero now because of G2 losing to Gentlemates, which is hilarious. But yeah, I think they've just completely missed out now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I don't think it's that they missed the major. I think it's that it's not that they missed the event. I think it's that they were going to the event and then they dropped out, which means I believe that counts for VRS as they lost all of those games because of the way teams were dodging events before. They had to change that rule, I believe. I think that wasn't initially in the rule book. Now you miss those games, then you count as losing those games, which really screws you. And something I've seen people talk about when it comes to VRS is that my understanding, and I'm going to say this because if someone knows I'm wrong, they'll say it in the comments and that'll be great. But it's kind of like sometimes the way HLTV does their ranking, which is that they care mostly about your peaks, like who you can beat, like your best wins, your 10 best wins, like matter a lot for teams that are coming up in the rankings. But then those losses, like for these teams coming from below, those losses to these top teams don't matter at all. And then when you're a top team, these losses, like because you've already got your opponent ranking, you're already beat a lot of top teams. You need to just dodge ever losing to a tier 2 team because you lose so many points because of that. I don't know if I'm explaining this right, if this makes sense. It's like if you're a top team, you've probably already maxed out like your 10 best wins in the last 6 or 8 months or whatever are probably already the best you're going to get. And now you need to maximize your VRS by not losing to anyone below you. Whereas these lower ranked teams, they need to go in and they need to they have nothing to lose because losing to a top team means absolutely nothing. So it kind of creates this really odd incentive structure where it's like, if you're in the top 15 teams, it's almost impossible to drop out because you just have so many opportunities to beat the top 5 teams, to make your opponent network that strong, unless you go to a bad LAN and lose to some really bad teams. That's it. That's the only way to drop out, and that's why I think which ties back to what I was saying, which is why it's weird that like Liquid can drop out of frag and they don't have to deal with the repercussions of like, oh, you just take the forfeit losses to these teams because it's not covered by HLTV. But it would have been if it would have been like this Birch Cup, or there was another LAN, a Draculan. Like if they would have played either one of those and decided to not go, they would have gotten forfeit losses to those teams and they would lose VRS. But they don't for this one, and it's weird because VP obviously they do suffer for that, and it's just, I don't know, man. It sucks. It sucks because I mean frag is already seeded. Like I know who I'm playing. We have the pleasure of playing Metasport in our first match, and I mean, you know, if we get to beat them, it would have been cool because it's like, oh, you know, we would have got a lot of VRS points in the group stage, but now it's completely off. And so, you know, I guess I don't have to wear the bad stats on HLTV though. So I guess there are some benefits to it. I mean, the root of this problem is that HLTV is a news coverage site, not a sporting body. And they should not be. I mean, they're doing a pretty good job of it, but it is insane that it's HLTV's job apparently to decide what events count and what events don't. Isn't this crazy? Yeah. This is kind of ridiculous, and I don't know. Maybe they volunteered for it, but I don't know. This is like the really kind of wild to me personally.
It is really weird. I mean, I like going into the later part of VRS for this year. I hope. Well, I mean, we're already there, but I guess going into next year, I hope that Valve has somebody that we can just directly contact and be like, hey, is this event like are we counting this one? Like, I guess maybe by proxy HLTV is that, but like, there's just so much that we don't understand about it, and it just leads to a lot of like weirdness. And every day I'm seeing a post from Messioso about something that's like messed up, and there's a loophole, and people are, you know, it's ridiculous, but. You know what is also kind of ridiculous is Nocries, the player who everybody was accusing of cheating last week, and we were all watching his demos. They actually invited him out to Faceit headquarters like they did back in the day with Rops, and he went there, and he did better, statistically speaking, than he did online. Of course, at Faceit headquarters. He had people watching him. He even streamed a game of FPL from there. And I mean, he's a very good player, like I said. But do we think that this proves that he didn't cheat?
So one of the things to keep in mind is that I think his stats took a downturn recently after all of the notoriety as well. I think if you looked at his stats like a month ago, I'm sure the Faceit HQ stats would not have been worse, or would not have been better, sorry. But at the same time, like, everyone has been saying from the start, and I don't mean to say this as like that I think he's cheating. In fact, I wish I had watched demos of him earlier, because I saw all the highlights and it kind of felt like, okay, this is kind of insane. And then I watched a bunch of his demos, and I probably previously, I came to this conclusion before I heard he went to Face HQ, that I thought he probably wasn't cheating, or if he was, it was like very minuscule, but probably not. At the same time, he goes to Faceit headquarters now, and he's opping like 3 or 4 times more often. And everyone would tell you he's a good player. Like, nobody has thought to themselves that he is a bad player with cheats. It's one of those things where it's hard to tell, because if he is cheating, it's a very good player that is using something that's like gives him just, if you're on the upper chest, you get a headshot, or it lowers your recoil. Like, it's one of those things where it's just a very small boost, and just doing well in pugs at Faceit HQ is not enough. I think it was better for Rops, because when it came to Rops, people thought he was wall hacking, which, yeah, if you go from wall hacking to not wall hacking, you're gonna play a lot worse. You're gonna suck, right? If you go from a very low FOV aimbot to not a very low FOV aimbot, in theory, you should be just fine. Maybe you just op a little more so you don't have to hit people in the head. And I still think he's probably not cheating. I'm just saying, like, it's far from definitive.
The problem is that he did himself no favors. Like, he checked every single box for a suspicious player, like, that you could possibly check. Like, every single one. Brand new account. Name, no cries. Like, you're not crying. Don't cry. You're playing against me. I'm farming you. Like that. I don't know. I mean, he has a no backstory. He dodged a LAN, albeit, I guess it was kind of like short-term planning. I will give him the benefit of the doubt for that. But dodged a LAN for a family emergency, supposedly. But he played Faceit pugs all day that day. Just want to add that. I'm not really sure. It's such a tricky one, because like you said, like, the chances that he's legit have gone up significantly since all of this has happened. And, but I don't think that we can completely write off like the potential. And I want to be very careful with my words, the potential that he could have been cheating beforehand. I don't think we'll ever know the answer to that at this point. I think it's kind of like impossible to prove, but, yeah, I don't know. I guess he's legit. Maybe we'll see him get picked up to Liquid. Hey, Elige's new teammate one day.
I mean, the problem is that, like, I think we expect too much from people that do cheat, where it's like, well, if he was gonna cheat, he could just cheat for a month and then get recognized and then stop cheating and then play legit, and it gives him a huge chance to go pro, which in theory on paper is a really good thing, like would be a really smart thing to do if you were completely immoral and you wanted to do that type of thing. But I think people give too much credit to cheaters. I think if he was cheating for a month, he probably would have just kept cheating and like pushed the bounds. He wouldn't have like stopped as soon as he got notoriety or anything like that. Like, I feel like that's expecting too much of someone if he was cheating. At the same time, when I look at him go to Faceit HQ and he performs a little bit worse in terms of like the way he's rifling, he ops a lot more. That also, I think this story completely lines up if the reasoning is that he's a legit player. He just finally started putting time into like aim trainers and stuff like that when he came to North America, and he just started kind of popping off, and he gets really nervous, like, and he's just got like some anxiety where he missed that LAN. Maybe it was because he had so much community pressure thinking he was a cheater, and he goes to Faceit HQ and he struggles to rifle as effectively, maybe because he's in a different setup, he's not comfortable, and he feels like there's a lot of pressure, and he knows, well, if I op, I just don't have to hit such a tiny target. And I did see him hit some incredible rifle shots. So I think it all adds up if he's just someone with like maybe some nerves like causing him problems.
It's crazy how the entire time that I've been talking about this guy, I've always said, yeah, these are all the reasons why he's suspicious, but at the same time, there's no way, like, he has plausible deniability for literally everything. And it's like, how can you ride the line between this guy is like, he could slip up one time and everything would be like, yeah, he cheated the whole time, right?
Yeah.
But that's not happening. It's not happening. He's just riding the line, a very thin line between suspicious or insane, and he doesn't get off of it, and it's insane. Like, plausible deniability. You could make a movie about this guy. Like, every single point where he might get caught for cheating is also just a point where he could just be nervous, or he could just be, oh, I didn't want to. I just thought.
Keep in mind, Austin, he is still performing well. He's, as you said, he's performing theoretically better. People have pointed out his headshot percentage, but when I looked at it, as long as I'm pretty sure I'm looking at the correct stats, his headshot percentage with rifles is not worse at Faceit HQ. It's that he's opping like 3 or 4 times more often than before. So I think that deflates his stats, because I was looking at it on CS Stats GG. And you can sort by the dates, and sorting by the dates, he was at HLTV headquarters. His stats, maybe his headshot percentage went down by like 1 or 2% with rifles, but it's at like 80% with the AK. So it goes from like 82 to 79. Like, that's not a drastic drop off, right? He's still doing just fine. It's just that, yeah, there are a lot of ways that you could say this doesn't prove anything. This doesn't disprove anything. But at the same time, it's hard to prove you're not cheating. It's like, it's always going to be impossible to prove you're not cheating until you just, you're never going to be able to prove you didn't cheat for those games. Even if he turns into Zywoo, he still can't prove you didn't cheat. You know, people just eventually give up on it if you do well enough for long enough.
Yeah, you're 100% right. There's nothing you can do at this point. He either cheated and he's done now, or he didn't cheat and he's just going to go on to be a really good player, which is what I hope. I hope that I'm clear in all of this, that I hope he's just a good player and that nothing but good things are coming his way, because I think that that's what he deserves if that's the case.
Maui Snake's point, by the way, was that he should be an opper. He should become an opper, and he could be in a top tier North American team today,
pretty much tomorrow.
And for sure that he's able to op at a very high level, because that's most of what he found success with at the Faceit HQ. And I agree with that. I think
we also have another player who used to be really insane, that was known as a land dodger at one point, and then he started opping. Exotic started opping for NRG, and that ended up working out pretty well, and he's still doing pretty good. So maybe that's the truth. Maybe he should just start opping, and then we'll have a new opper in NA. But you know what? Here's one thing I actually hope. I hope he changes his name. Like, this name, Nocries, like, yeah, I mean, it's just like, I played on an alt account and that's the name I threw up. I hope that he picks a new name before like he starts to compete in teams. I haven't heard anyone else mention this, but I really do think he should change his name. Like, not that I don't think he would even lose any name value. I think that it just, he has a troll name. It's like Shucklover86. If you have a name like that, when you first start making waves, if you want to change it, you got to do it now, because otherwise you're going to be stuck with it forever.
Okay, Austin CSGO _ Yeah,
bro,
you're gonna start lecturing us on having the right.
Look, I got rid of, when I met you, I had 3 underscores in my name, and I have somehow and I have dropped all 3, albeit one a year. So we've slowly gotten away from it, because you can't change your name easily on whatever.
No, once you're in a major, it sucks. I just remember when me and Austin first met. His Twitch, his YouTube, and his everything was completely different. You couldn't find this guy on multiple platforms. It would just be like, his YouTube would be like Austin _ CSGO, and then his Twitch is like Austin CSGO _ and then his Twitter is like Austin _ CS _ like, I don't know. Yeah, those aren't the actual names, but
they weren't the actual ones. But you're right, because I couldn't get the just Austin CS on anything. I just finally got it on. I've had it on YouTube for a while now. I've got it on Twitch. I've got it. No, I don't even have it on Instagram. I got it on TikTok. That's
sick.
Big. That's big. I can't get it on Twitter. Twitter doesn't let you take ads from anyone. Ridiculous.
Yeah, I can't take VooCS2, and some random no follower made a month before CS2 came out account has VooCS2. So
yeah, that was actually
me. Completely trapped me.
I remember all the grief you gave me about my name, and I actually just stole yours.
You know the sad thing, Austin? You want to know the sad thing? I actually think it might have been me. I think I might have taken it to save it, because I knew someone might do that, and I think I might have taken it and then forgotten.
Wait,
what the information was. I think there is a reasonable chance this was actually me, and I have stolen my own from myself.
So you trolled yourself.
And I just, because
a month before CS, I mean, you're the only person that has a reason to do that. Like,
other than someone that doesn't like me or someone that just wants to troll. Like, some people just do that as a troll. Maybe they're watching and they're like, ha ha ha, he doesn't have his at. I don't know.
He still doesn't know it was me.
Maybe it was Warel, dude. Maybe he just wants to fuck with me.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But that's got to be the most hilarious thing ever if that actually happened. You took your own at and just can't remember.
I think I put it like 50-50. Like, actually.
Well, it's kind of been an exciting week in terms of headlines. I before we go, I wanted to put some more like unhinged things at the end of this episode about Rain. So what do you think about this? Okay, let me throw this out there. And okay, what if
Austin, you started with unhinged takes about Rain? That was the beginning of the podcast. He actually benched himself so he could go play with Simple. That was.
But hear me out. Okay, look.
Began unhinged. How do you?
In the video that they released, the Goodbye Rain video, which you said you haven't watched yet, I'll tell you what happened. Okay. Kerrigan gave a few words, seemed generally unfazed. Okay, no pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was like, whatever. This day was coming. He's an old man. You know, in terms of CS, you know, he's watched many teammates come and go. Rain, he seemed pretty dejected. He was pretty sad. Frozen cried.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like actually cried. Brokey tried not to laugh the whole time, and Jacob said, "Yeah, it was cool playing with you for 2 weeks." Here's what I think. Okay, I think what's gonna happen is Rain's going to go play with Simple. And I had mentioned earlier that they can have one more player, one big name signed to BC Game before next season starts. What if they got Frozen? Hear me out. I think this could be a really good move. No, because we already know. Wait,
I tuned out because I knew it was going to be crazy, and I'm just tuning back in with the word Frozen to what you think Frozen to BC Game is
correct
what?
With Rain.
With Rain.
Yes. After the major.
Got me. Okay, you actually got me because compared to this, the earlier comments in this podcast, which I previously thought were unhinged, were completely hinged. Those were well on the hinges. We are now off the hinges.
Listen, okay, and hear me out, all right? Because it could be a big brain play from Rain, because he realizes that he's lost it. You know, he can't control FaZe anymore. He's Mr. FaZe Clan, but he's got no power on the roster moves now. So he decided he was going to go play with Simple, where they'll have all the power to sign whoever they want. Again, the only player who seemed kind of broken up about it in the video was Frozen. Okay,
then why would he be the one going with? Wouldn't he be happy?
Because he's still got to play this major now with this bum ass FaZe roster. Okay, I'd be crying too. He's looking to his left. Where did Rain go? I have Brokey and Jacob, and somehow Twist is on the roster.
Awesome.
How did that happen? Unk is dropping a 0.79 rating next to him as well. Like it's not looking good.
I think it was Faceit where he said something like, "Oh no, I think it might have been Maui Snake when Shiro cried after they lost the major." And he said the tweet was something like, Shiro wasn't crying because he lost. He was crying because he knows he has to play with whoever. And this is that. Frozen isn't crying because Rain's leaving. He's crying because he has to play the major with these bums. That's actually the tweet.
Yeah.
This is the real life of that tweet.
So after, if BC Game can get their VRS core with Rain, sooner the better, by the way, guys. I know you guys are definitely listening. You get your VRS core with Rain, then you can actually sign more players after the major, and you can actually have a Simple Rain, Frozen. You can keep Nexa, I guess. You get Frozen, and then sign someone else also insane, and you all of a sudden you're a top 5 team if you really try hard enough. That's all I'm gonna say. I mean, we already heard about the Navi Frozen rumors, like, you know, maybe he's been eyeing up some other options. Clearly playing with Rain and Simple would be more exciting than what he's doing here on FaZe. He's the star player. Like, you know, he wants to go to a team where he's surrounded by people he can relate. Anyway, don't listen to me, just wait and see it happen. Okay, I sound crazy. Maybe I'm coping. Yeah, it's a stage of grief. It's normal, okay? It's normal, okay? I don't want to watch my goat fall into obscurity. Let me have this, even if it's just for this week.
Yeah. You're not. No, this was not this week in CS, Austin. This was never happening in CS. That's what this was.